What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the MaxBet Podcast. I am joined today by LinkedIn celebrity, possible internet celebrity, Heather Lee. So if you're like me and never met her in person until right now, you probably feel like you already know her. She's everywhere. She's on every algorithm. You're the algorithm buster. Thanks for joining us. Welcome in.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we have so much to talk about, and yet nothing to talk about. It's kind of a fun thing. So next week at G2E, you graciously invited me to sit on your panel. So you were tabbed to moderate a panel on kind of brand building and brand management from a casino perspective. You invited me in to kind of shed some insights. So thanks for that. Or how did you get tabbed with that? Is it because you're so LinkedIn popular, or how did it become that this is the Heather show on the brand building program?
So actually, this panel is my baby.
Okay.
So, when they did, I've spoken at G2E twice. But this time when they asked for topics, I was still at Engage Nation. So, brand and marketing was really relevant to me. And so I was like, I want to create something that sounds super fun and that's really relevant and then also timely.
Yeah.
And so I wrote a whole little synopsis. And of course, I wrote something that was this big.
Yes. I read it. You sent me the thing and this is what it's about. I'm like, oh my God, just read this. You'll be fine.
And then it turns out you just fill in blanks and there's word limits.
It's like...
So it was like all of my hard work. But so I just parsed it down into little...
What made you passionate about this? Like, what made you go this? Because, you're a smart lady. You've been in the business a long time. What made the brand building piece of it so topical or so relevant for you?
Well, I like the idea of how you build a brand. Yep. And then the biggest thing I really wanted to focus on is... Because I get tired of hearing everybody say, how do we market to millennials?
Yeah.
First of all, okay, whatever. But... everybody has, what's your niche? How do you find your own brand? And then how do you make it relevant, not just to millennials, but across the board? And then maintain that level of interest as people progress in whatever their gaming lifespan looks like.
Yep.
So do they love entertainment right now? And we make them fall in love with your brand through that. And then, as they gain more disposable income, now all of a sudden they like to go and play roulette, my game
Casino.
of choice.
Is that? Yeah, nice.
And then, so just trying to figure out how you find your brand, how you find your voice, how do you leverage all the social media platforms available. And then I really was intrigued by influencer marketing.
Okay.
So I wanted to tie that into, because it's some people really embrace it and others don't. So why? What's the why?
The why to do it.
Yes.
Yeah. So I love when you ask questions, because then I can just flip them back on you. So when you say, how do you market to millennials? Is there an answer, or do you even try? Is it something you should be targeting and saying, look, we want, I don't even know, I'm an older millennial, whatever you call it, 85 born. So it's do you even go after us, or do you just do what you do and then maybe we find it attractive? What is the answer to that when people ask you?
Well, I would say, first of all, yeah, we're old millennials,
Yep.
but I don't even think that we're as far as in when everyone was talking about marketing to millennials, we were kind of the baby cohort of legal age, and now we're old.
Yep.
And so, what's the next one? Gen Z?
Z, yeah, I think, yeah.
So, figuring out how to target them, I think for everybody 40 and under, it's probably experiential.
Sure.
How do you make it something that's fully immersive and something that's more than just a put your money in X, this is what happens, Y. Yep. So what's the full experience? But at the same time, you have to figure out how you market to younger demographics without alienating your current players. So I think that's the caveat of you don't want to go so far as to be just so far out there that it's off-putting to some people. There's a really good ad, and I tried to find it, and I reached out to the property to ask them if they would send it to me. And they were like, no.
No, we don't. Who are you? We're not doing this yet.
They did work to kill it, but it was to me, it was captivating. So they had this character dressed up as a Sasquatch.
Okay. I already love this, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. But they called her the Casquatch. Cash Squatch.
Oh, interesting.
And she looked like a prostitute.
Okay, that less exciting. Yeah.
I
was thinking gigantic hairy thing.
No,
and
she
you
was.
go into, oh, really? Okay. Scantily dressed Sasquatch.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it shows her player journey through the casino. And it had an entire table of us marketers at a dinner during the raving conference talking about it, passing the phone.
How good is that?
So to me, that kind of stuff is so intriguing. But then at the same time, I thought about it and for my parents who may go to the casino, for them, it'd probably be a little bit too far.
Yeah.
So maybe that only goes out on Instagram, for instance.
You target it to that type of audience where you go, this is maybe more appealing to people with our weirdo sense of humor.
Yes.
Not, your parents. That makes sense. Yeah, it's interesting. When I think about it, I always think about just be who you are, right? So like in branding, it's like just understand who you are, right? Because like in casinos, what I always think about traveling around is like, when you go to a casino, if it's going to be a 4 or 5 star type of casino, or if it's more of that middle grind, 3 star, let's be generous, 2.5 rounded up. And that's okay. Like there's a place for all of it. But when let's call it 3 stars, try to market their place as if it's a 5 star, you're like, you're going to disappoint everyone, right?
Absolutely.
Like you're trying to do a thing because you saw somebody else do it, but it is who they are and it's not who you are. So you're basically faking it. And then I think that'll ultimately lead to a bad outcome because you may get my first pass and go, oh, wow, okay, it's really that. And then you get in and you're like, yeah, this isn't 5 stars in any book I've ever read. So it's, it may be wrong. And you may be alienating your players because there may be the folks that really like that, call it midday grind type of play that aren't really looking for big fancy steak dinners that are not going to go to your property, even though that's probably where they'd have the most fun, right? So I feel like my general sense is if you're trying to do a thing, you're probably doing it wrong. Like you just got to be kind of who you are and let it flow out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Reno, Nevada.
I'm sorry to hear that. Go Rebels. We're here. Yeah, all good. We're at Black Fire. We're at Black Fire, UNLV. No worries. So what? So you grew up in Reno. Sorry to
and back the pack. But anyways, besides that.
We'll sort this out.
So I grew up watching gaming commercials, right? Like all my whole life. And there's this one casino called the Gold Dust West.
Okay.
And they've always called it your house full of friends. That has been their motto forever. It is a no frills, no hotel, just slots and a diner. Mm-hmm. And it is literally always packed when I go there to see them. Because they know who they are. They know who they're targeting. And for someone who doesn't want to go to, let's say, the Grand Sierra and deal with all the different entertainment that they have and a full casino floor full of like people just sitting in a machine waiting for their restaurant to be open, not playing, like those kind of annoying things, they can go there and just have like a down-to-earth, show up in your after-work clothes, or I guess it'd be your work clothes.
Yeah, it's okay.
And then you can play and enjoy yourself, right?
Yeah, for sure. And there's people that want that. Mm-hmm. Right? There are people that don't need all the amenities and everything else. That reminds me when you're talking, there's a place in Northern Cal, San Pablo, which is in Oakland. Mm-hmm. And they do great. Busy wall to wall, and it's not the greatest neighborhood. I mean, I don't want to hate on it too hard, but it's there's times at night where they're like, "Don't be alone," right, type of thing. But you're going, it's wall to wall, and the gaming offering is good. The hold is probably player friendly. And I asked the GM one time, I said, "Hey, Select, you don't even have a players club?" He goes, "No." He goes, "We don't give anything away." He goes, "We just give it all back in the games," and they love it. And that's who we want. Like we're not after the resort player. We're not after the I want to play so I can get concert tickets or front row this and that. They go, there's a market for that, but that's not our market, right? And they do really well. And I think just owning that, the businesses I've seen that are the most successful, even the people that I've seen that are the most successful, just say, look, this is, for better or for worse, this is who I am or this is who we are, and that's what we're going to go attract in the world, not try to fake something else that maybe sounds good to the algorithm or something else, right? So
absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So will say this, I love how we're pumping the panel. Not just the fact that we are pumping the panel, but I got a lot of engagement on these what do you want, memes that we've had. So I was Kristen Wiig one week where I had a little skinny bridemaid's body. I've been Ron Burgundy. So this has been fun. What do you think about that? Like, I think somebody texted me like, how could you let a photo of you as a girl go out? And I was like, how could you not do that? Like, for me, it's part of me is like, just have fun. But that's kind of who I am. Like, I don't know. Like, what's your response been to that? Like, has it been generally favorable? Has anyone been like, Heather, you shouldn't be Ron Burgundy? Like, is anyone like giving you this hard time or what?
No, I think people like seeing me as a man. It's been enjoyable for them.
There you go. What are we reading into here? I don't know, but yeah, we'll see.
Hello.
Yeah, well, welcome. Yeah, exactly.
No, I think that, okay, so, all of the other gaming shows, like, I've really felt comfortable to just be super chill and funny. Mm-hmm. G2E has always been a little bit more...
Well, it's the Super Bowl of gaming shows. Yes. It's the big stage.
A little buttoned up, sure. Right? And I think that we are going to be delivering, like, a world-class content experience. Shameless plug.
That's all right, yeah.
But making it really fun. And so I'm glad that we have this group because we don't have to be stuffy. Mm-hmm. And the way that we're promoting it is a great indicator of what experience people can expect.
For sure.
So we're staying true to our own brand. And, this is my brand. So for me, it's been really easy peasy. I think a lot of people
100%.
know that like I just love to have fun. I love to laugh. At the same time, like I want to deliver good content. And so the way that we're marketing it is actually in alignment with what people like with what we're trying to accomplish, right? We're not sitting there and touting like, oh, you're going to walk away with 3 continuing education units for blah, blah, blah. No, this is meant to be fun, interactive. We want people to come and laugh, but at the same time, walk away with something that's meaningful.
Yeah, and I think that's what I, was hoping you'd say, because what it feels like to me is you're going to get what we've kind of built it to be, right?
Yes.
Is we're a little goofy. We do not take it too seriously. Like it's G2E will be professional. Like we're not going to get up there and just start telling raunchy jokes for an hour, maybe some non-raunchy jokes, but like it's, but this idea is like, we're going to be fairly relaxed. Like it's not necessarily going to be get your notebook out and write 42 data points down. I mean, we'll have data mixed in, like, cause there's obviously a lot of information, but it's, let's laugh a little. Let's have fun. Let's understand that like if we're having fun, the audience is likely having fun. And then when you're talking about, what was it, cash squatch? Like that's a fun concept. And I get maybe they didn't want to continue with it because I can understand why it's also a little strange. Maybe put it in a tuxedo would be different, but like it's, but there's fun there and people enjoy it. We're obviously now talking. I've never seen the ad. You brought it to my attention. Like it catches on because it was authentically fun to someone. And then those of us that relate were like, I would go to there. Right.
Yes.
So that's, I think, what we're trying to get across is let's be real. Let's have some fun and let's bond from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. at Monday morning of G2E down in the rooms.
Absolutely. We're going to set the tone for everybody's like the rest of that first Monday of just like pumped full of energy. We're going to have fun. And one more thing about that ad. So as we were sitting there as the table of marketing folks at this event, the thing that I noticed is there was a few people that did hate it. As fellow casino marketers, they were like, oh, this is horrible. But I was like, look, we're still talking about it.
Yeah.
It's still got, and one of the people that didn't like it is the one that showed it. And I was like, all of us now are intrigued by this.
So she brings it up as like, check out this ridiculous thing. And you're all like, we love this thing.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. She's like, oh, that's not what I thought. Yeah.
So sometimes like that whole polarization can actually be quite effective. It just depends on what your end goal is.
Yeah.
Like, don't be so polarizing that someone that never wants to come to your establishment.
Don't be political polarizing. Just do goofy things. Like it's like the one I always think of when we talk about bad advertising or kind of weirdo thing was Quiznos. Remember that Quiznos? They had like, it looked like rats or like mice with like human eyeballs, and they were talking about, and it was just like, this is the weirdest thing, and it's a little creepy, but everybody knew what Quiznos was back then. I mean, now it's gone, so maybe it wasn't that effective, but it's just one of those advertising messages, right? You get through it, and so it's like, yeah, there's some power to being a little strange. Like you could be buttoned up in Nike and just believe and do the whole thing, but there's only so much room for that. Like at some point, we know not every brand is, top 10 in the world and going to do the beautiful advertising. Sometimes you got to just be a little weird, be a little rebellious.
That's kind of like what I'm working through right now on a personal front. Yeah. So I have my own brand, and I've always been like really kind of like the way that we are, like funny and just like to be playful. And so I just got done with my first like full IT conference. Yep. And I'm trying to find my voice and my brand with this new audience because some of what I say is not landing the same as it did with marketers. So I'm trying to like figure out how to navigate that. Yeah.
What do you attribute that to? So like obviously the style has been effective in other scenarios. Is it just that this playground of technology and IT may not be ready for that type of attitude? Is it just that they're like, well, it takes a minute to get used to it? Like, is you're just coming in hot and heavy and they're like, okay, we will get here, but we need a minute to chew on this? Or like, what do you like? Why do you think it's a little disconnected so far?
I think what's going to tie it all together is once I learn all of the proper terminology and how to like, if I can take it and tie it to an IT type of reference or something else, maybe it'll land better. Like once I know how to tell a funny ISO joke, I'm sure it's going to go over well.
Are there funny ISO jokes? Maybe just
TBD.
Go find,
I'm working on it.
Nerdy IT and just go, listen, bud, tell me things that are funny. And you won't get it, but you'll be like, oh, funny. They all laughed. Yeah,
yes. So
that's true. I do find as a guy who attempts to be funny and doesn't always succeed, I do find if you can find like that one thing, right? Like for whatever reason, we had a lady when I was earlier in my career and my computer wasn't working. And so I don't know what was going on. She was the IT, she was former Army. She was great. And she comes in the office. She goes, all right, well, I just got to rule out that it's not an ID 10T thing? And I go, ID10T. I go, am I supposed to know what that means? She goes, well, just write it down. And so when you write it down, it looks like idiot. And she goes, so I just had to make sure it's not me. That's the problem. And she's like in her lap, she's kind of chuckling to herself. And I'm going, I fell for it. I'm like, oh, ID10T. I hope it's not that, right? And she goes, well, yeah, me too. I hope it's not that because I outranked her. And so she goes, no, it's not that. Something else. Here's a legitimate, whatever config firewall or something or other. And so I was like, oh, okay. But I'm like, there's probably a million of those where there's just that little, like if you were in the right circle and you go, but it's an ID10T, they're like, yeah, that guy's an idiot, right? Like, just got to learn those. Got to learn the little the lingo for that. So
I'm going to take that one with me.
You should. I use it every now and again, and most of the time it lands. I think there's like one time with an IT person that they were like, what is that? I haven't heard that one. I'm like, oh, okay, no, I've found a mainstream dig at us that are not IT folks, so that's good. It's like that one word that, like, when you're speaking to somebody like from Hawaii, you use a phrase or two, and you're like, okay, not just a total mainlander, right?
Yes.
Like you can slip it in, so it's the same kind of thing.
Get a little street cred.
Yeah, but I would just say don't change, right? Like I think to your point, like as long as you start to learn the material, I think any audience that goes, okay, she knows what she's saying, right? Like now the fact that you're saying it maybe with it slanted towards humor or maybe a little more casually, I think it's okay, right? It's as long as it's, you're not getting it wrong. I think if you were being humorous or like kind of flippant about tech and then they're like, and by the way, everything you're saying is not right, then you're like, we can't deal. Go back to wherever you came from. But here it's like, I think as long as you're doing the work, you become a student of the technology and the division, if you want to think of the world of tech, and then, you bring your touch to it. I think that's probably right. It'll keep being effective is my hunch anyway.
Yeah, I'm going to learn. It's my goal. And so I can marry me with those ideas.
Yeah.
And
honestly, just that level of vulnerability to be like, I don't know, I'm working on it, like is huge. Cause I feel like that was personal coaching for me early in my career. Cause it was like a guy sat me, obviously they kind of had that back at AGS, they had brought in a guy to kind of help, I don't know, not life coach. He was very clear about that, but executive coach a few of us. And he goes, you're not perfect, right? I go, yeah, that's been very clear to me. He goes, okay. He goes, but it's okay to let other people know you're not perfect too, right? And I go, oh, do I have a thing that makes me, he goes, yeah. Like, he goes, you're always you're like hitting the winning shot and you're trying to be like, Mr. I got everything under control. He goes, but you don't. And like the faster you admit that, the better it's going to be, right? And so I was like, so he kind of got me on this whole track of just be authentic. And sometimes you don't know, and that's okay too, right? And so it sounds like this here, and it sounds like you're already approaching it the right way. I don't know. I'm figuring out the tech thing. I'm still going to be a happy person and a positive kind of personality, and that'll all catch up at some point. Probably not even that far in the future.
I hope so. Like yesterday was my 90 days.
Oh, so you can't fire you now. It'll be harder anyway.
So I'm trying to remember to like give myself enough grace to be.
Yeah, you're not going to make it. You're not going to be perfect in 90 days, especially a new industry. Like that's. Yeah.
I put a cybersecurity, code book underneath my bed so I could try to learn it just through osmosis.
Just osmosis.
Yeah, it's not working yet.
So that all right. So that changes things a little. So I do want to get into kind of your current role and what you're doing. So you're working for Big Cyber, which is just a great name. But that is, if I understand correctly, the cybersecurity arm of BMM.
Correct. Yes.
So in your first 90 days getting into this, what stands out to you? Like, is it just the overwhelming, like, I guess I shouldn't answer for you. Just what stands out to you your first 90 days as you're coming into this? What are you seeing that you didn't expect? Like, what's maybe caught you off guard the first quarter?
Well, since I'm only 90 days in, go ahead and answer for me.
Well, because sometimes I ask and then I realize what I do is I ask you and then I propose 3 possible answers as if you should choose those. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. That's not
the leading question.
Yeah, I don't want to mansplain you or whatever the thing would be that I'm doing. I'm doing some sin here. So let's let you be the judge here.
So I would say, well, first of all, like I knew that it was an issue. That's why I wanted to make this transition, right? Sure. I'm like, what can I do where it's going to be really relevant outside of gaming, even though, of course, this is where I want to be, but still just like as far as in for the future and everything else. And then something that's extremely relevant. And so that's why I wanted to do it. But I didn't realize like how scary it was until I got here. And just like how much we're not even aware of that's happening, at all times.
Yeah.
And so that's been the first part is just learning like how big the actual threat is, how inadequately prepared most of us are. And you never want to sell through fear, right? That's not my goal to be like, oh, everything's going to fall apart. Yep. It's the end of the world.
Hackers are taking it all. Yeah, exactly.
But at the same time, just awareness. And the other thing, too, that's been interesting is it feels like it should be something that everybody wants to at least have some kind of like visibility to. Like if you're a part of the organization, you should have a vested interest as far as in what the organization is doing to be adequately prepared and protected. But a lot of people are just like, I know everyone has their role and their place, but still, it is a large conversation that everyone should have, like at least a seat at the round table discussion or tabletop exercises, like things where we're figuring out how would we approach this if it happens.
Yeah. And then, well, to your point about everybody in an organization, I mean, that's maybe I'm just being convinced by all the trainings I've had to take in the last couple of years of, any person is the vulnerability. The end user is the weak point, right? And you go, because you can make a great system, but like in, I don't want to name names on casinos, but one of the casino operators, it sounds like somebody just called in and the guy there was on the line going, hey, I feel bad for you. I'll try to help you. And in that act of trying to help, took down the whole thing because it was like, oh, you let him in. And now that was a bad actor who hung up on you and just caused chaos in the whole, this whole organization. So yeah, we all have to be diligent in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the trends in cybersecurity? Like I'm always curious, like, I always assume it's a software thing, but do we have vulnerable hardware? Like, is it just a full upgrade coming? Like how are we trending? Like, what are folks doing now to safeguard themselves in the future? I mean, obviously chatting about it is important, but like, what are you noticing from what are they doing in this world?
I would say one of the things I'm seeing or that people are embracing more is increased penetration testing. So what's that cadence and to what extent are you doing it, right? Like, are you just checking a box and doing it annually and just meeting the bare minimum requirements? Or are you actually having somebody come on site, trying to include social engineering, things like that, so we could prevent someone from answering and being like, oh, so let me reset all of your master passwords.
Exactly.
Controlling who has access to what in a more regulated way and teaching your staff that, like, they don't have to have admin rights to be able to adequately do their job.
Yeah.
What else?
And just to clarify, so penetration testing, sometimes not everybody understands. That's basically, context clues would tell you, you hire your own bad actor. So you're basically saying, hey, we feel secure, but rather than wait for the actual bad actor to come, we're going to hire somebody that's going to go play the role of bad guy and try to attack us and see if they can get in. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that seems smart. I think that's smart probably just in more than tech, but certainly in technology. And well, I think famously you see some of the larger companies. I know at one point X was doing it at Facebook. Maybe they're saying, if you find a way in, you let us know. We're probably going to hire you. Like, we feel like we're impenetrable, and then all of a sudden you got through. Okay, so thanks for telling us. And by the way, here's your offer. Like, it's almost a contest to some of the larger. I'm not saying that should be what we do, but that's what I see in kind of the broad media. Right? Is you want to do that because otherwise, by the time you realize you're vulnerable, it's too late.
Right. Yeah. And so there are those folks that do that, and they'll come out and try to, not hired by you, and they'll do that, and they'll exploit a vulnerability and tell you about it for some kind of fee.
Ransom or something, yeah.
Yes, but without harming you, versus somebody that actually locks up your data. And even within that category, there's two types of players in the field. So there's the good bad actors who, let's say I take out your POS system.
Okay.
Well, if you pay me, I actually do what I say and I release that and I go away, versus you pay me and then I'm like, just kidding. Yeah. Send more,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That, good, bad actor at the beginning, I was like, that's an oxymoron. That doesn't make sense. But then I get what you're saying. So I guess it's a thief with integrity. Is that even a thing that we can say? But they're like, yeah, we've hacked in. All we really want is 10 million. Give it to us and I'm gone. And I really will be gone because maybe I believe that you're not going to come after me. And versus the guy that's like, no, thanks, man. You got 10, you probably got 10 more. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
That's tough. Yeah, that's wild. So I guess, like, where do we go from here? It's just everything now needs to be more cyber secure.
Yeah, and I think you touched on this, though, but the at the end of the day, you can have $1,800 billion in technology. That's a real number. Just so
$1,800 billion seems like a lot. That seems like it's now in the trillions. I'm not a math guy, but we'll see. So that's a lot of money.
That's real budgets.
I want to work for that company if they got that kind of budget, but okay, no problem.
So you could have all the technology in the world, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like what I do. Like I learned this analogy from my boss, but I've been using it.
Okay.
So I have an 18-year-old son.
Okay.
So I can have all of the security at my house in the world. And when I go out of town, it won't matter if he leaves the front door unlocked.
Or if he just has his friends over for the party. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
You know, like I found out he was letting people in through his bedroom window because there's no cameras back there. So it is what it is. But, you know, that's the same thing with our employees. So you can have all of the safeguards in the world, but if somebody clicks a link, changes a password, any of those other things, it doesn't matter. So then it's a matter of like how quickly can you recover from that and how long can they stay in there without you knowing things like that. But so the biggest thing is making sure that people are adequately prepared to be your first line of defense.
And is that just training and messaging and kind of constantly being that bug in the ear going, hey, don't forget, people are trying to attack us? Because, I mean, my kids are not 18. I have 7, 6, and 2. But it's constantly like, hey, don't open the door. Like, you know, if somebody rings it, that's a dad job. I don't know who's out there, right? Like that type of and then they're like, I know, Dad, right? Like you get the attitude, especially my daughter, I know, Dad. It's like, okay, thanks. But I'm doing it to keep you safe, right? So is it just one of those where now like the executive team or the IT team just has to become that like overbearing parent? It's like, hey, don't click things. Like, I'm fishing you. I'm trying to spam you. And they're like, eventually you're going, I know, but like you still need to hear it. Is that like the best defense, or how do you get the people on board?
Yeah, I think that that's it. And then I had someone that we're working with say something I thought was brilliant. Like everyone else was talking about how do you turn it into like a teachable moment, and it was more along the lines of like correction.
Sure.
But this other person said make it more of a reward situation where, oh, hey, you know, you're doing all of this well. Make it a contest for the positive at first. And of course, like if you have those folks that are consistently not doing what they need to do, then you can change that. But in the beginning, like how do you focus on a reward-based system versus like corrective actions?
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. I laugh because when I was at Light and Wonder most recently, they did that all the time. So you'd always get some fake email, and they could spoof it to make it look like it came from your boss.
Oh my God,
so I failed the first one. So I was like 3 days in, and they spoofed it to look like it came from Siobhan, and I'm like, oh, it's the boss. I got to open this, and they're like, you lose. Like, and then they're like, your punishment is you got to take a 30-minute training on this. Like, so you failed. And so part of me's going, I want to get them all right now, only because I don't want to take the 30-minute training.
Yes.
Right? It's not so much a reward that I get like a T-shirt, but at the same time, I'm like, well, I don't have to sit through a half an hour training, which is due in like 72 hours because you need to prove that you're not at risk, right? But
I probably would have given you like a little trophy too if you started to get them right.
Could be. Yeah, I think it's maybe a virtual one. There's a lot of employees. It's a lot of trophies to print out. And then so I guess the question, so then I guess a little plug over to Big Cyber. So for what are you guys actually doing? So is it like, are you doing the penetration test, basically saying, hey, if somebody's like trying to come in a gaming company, right, if it's a BMM arm, is saying, come look at our system, come look at our slot operating system to say, hey, are we vulnerable? Are you like doing that type of test? Or like what is the core service offering for Big Cyber at BMM?
So we offer a security operations center, so 24/7 monitoring, the penetration testing with social engineering. I'm even talking to someone where we're going to leave like charging cables and flash drives about the property, because how many people would find that and plug it into their computer?
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden the whole system, whatever that looks like.
So somebody can hang a virus or something similar in a charging cable and just leave it for you?
Correct. Yeah. So for everyone, this is your safety tip of the day.
Yeah.
If you find a flash drive or a charging cable that's rogue and it's unknown to you, do not plug it into your devices.
Just get away from it. That would be huge.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's that's wild. I didn't know they could do that. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's so scary, if you want to think, is the bad actors will always be trying, and the good actors have to keep up, and the way they try is just amazing. Like, it's, how do we put an iPhone cable that looks innocent? I mean, I have 6 of them, right, or however many. Yep. But now all of a sudden that one I found, and it's not a lucky day for me. Now it's like bad news because I plugged it into my MacBook and I lost everything. Or even if I don't lose it, they now have it also, which is also bad, right? So
yes,
yeah, that's pretty wild.
But so we do the penetration testing, and then we are a reseller of Know Before. So that training.
Oh yeah,
yes.
Is that with the Inside Man, or is that somebody else?
That is the Inside Man.
What a brilliant program.
When I was at Every, we used to get together as a group to watch the new episode, popcorn, whole 9 yards.
Yeah, I always laugh. I'm like, there's like a love interest here, and there's like, it's such a random IT training, like 9 minutes a month or however often it was. It was like, this is great.
Yes.
So for those unfamiliar, Know Before is basically a mandatory training you have to click into, 10 minutes-ish each time, but they've done it like a drama. So it's acted out, and it's some poor guy that got his girlfriend was the bad actor, and she got him to share passwords or something, and you're like, what? Don't do it for love, or don't, this is how they get you. And I think they reversed it, so the guy was a bad actor and took advantage of the girls. It's, a balance there, but like
it's probably who was running your phishing testing as well.
Could be, yeah. It was great. It was super. I mean, once I figured out they were doing that, because the first time we didn't have that everywhere I've been.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, oh, the boss sent a note. Look at the link, and then the link says just you're an idiot. And I was like, yeah, of course. I feel smart generally. And so, and then I was like, okay, yep, fish here, boom. It's like, but yeah, they did all that. It was, so that's you guys.
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome. Well, I didn't know you were providing that, but I do say it felt effective because we were very much aware of the fact that that phishing could happen, and so we definitely double checked emails. Or there were times where I'd get an email from, it wasn't always your boss, sometimes it was a peer, and I go, that doesn't sound like Chris. Hey, bud, did you send me this? No. What are you talking about? Okay, don't worry about phishing, and then you get the gold star. But I guess if you're looking for it, that's a good one. That was good because it was also entertaining. Like, I'm sure you've been through it, but how many IT trainings are you like, oh, again, like this, I can't read another line about them, some overly technical thing. And here I was like, I get it. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Real
And
world
so,
scenarios.
we're just a reseller, but it's a phenomenal product, and they give me as a reseller access to so many different tools. And so I really love that product.
Awesome.
Amazing.
What else is cooking in your world?
I mean, I would think that that's pretty much it. I'm excited for G2E.
Yeah.
I will be at a booth.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I wish I knew my booth number right now.
Is
Brutal.
it the Big Cyber booth? Is it the BMM booth?
It's the BMM booth, yes.
Subset, so you get to hang out with all those folks. Yeah.
Yes. And it'll be very comfortable.
Yep.
There's chairs. So
It's funny how most people listen to be like, that is a weird selling point. But I think anyone that's been to G2E is like, oh, there's chairs? This is great. I'm coming. I'll sit down. You can tell me about cybersecurity. Yeah,
I'll let you sit and I'll tell you. And this year I'm going out on a limb and trying something new. I will be wearing tennis shoes. So
why is that such a challenge? Like, I mean, I'm not saying it's bad, but like you seem like this is a major change. So I could just feel your energy when you said it. Is it just because stylistically that's not your normal program, or like,
yeah, I've suffered it in heels for the last, going on 7 years.
Yeah.
So I'm ready to make the transition to tennis shoes and comfort.
Yeah.
So it's a whole change in the way you have to style your outfits, but I'm here for that journey for myself. And I figured I'm going to be so much happier by the end of the day.
I would assume so, yeah.
That, I'll like everybody still,
Like we will still be friends at 5 p.m. on Thursday.
I'll be so much better at hosting dinners. I'll be like, I love you, instead of like, oh,
my feet hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was always, as a guy, I always felt like that was nice to not have to be subject to that level of scrutiny where it's like, well, your kind of fashion would dictate you're supposed to wear heels, but that's not fun for you. And so you're always walking that line. And I think a lot of the ladies I'd worked with were saying, well, we'll just wear flats in, heels during, and flats out. And maybe that was the best compromise at the time. But yeah, I think sneakers are in. Like, yeah. I think you're going to see a lot of people wearing, I don't know if they're all Nikes, but sneakers are kind of dressing up with more of a casual shoe to not have to suffer through. Because guy dress shoes aren't the most comfortable either. There are no heels. It's not a contest. Women have it worse, right? But
I mean, yeah, you could try heels this G2E, and then you could tell me about your
experience. They don't make heels for gorillas. I'm not. I don't think I'm ready. There's no heel out there going, we made them for linemen. There's no world. So I'll just take your word on it, trust that it's not comfortable.
You would walk in like 20 feet over. Whoa.
Yeah. I'm now 7 feet tall instead of just 6.5 feet tall. Yeah. But we digress. So, yeah, no, this is cool. So thanks for coming by. So if anyone out there is interested in anything we just said, you can find Heather Lee on LinkedIn. Pretty straightforward. She's on your feed already, probably. If not, she'll be tagged in this episode, so you can check it out there. And then Big Cyber booth at big BMM booth to see Big Cyber.
Absolutely.
But the big crown jewel, 9 a.m. Monday, G2E panel. Come down to the halls. We'll be there dropping some knowledge on branding. Maybe we solved the millennial problem. Hard to know. But all in all, thanks for coming and appreciate your time. Cheers.
Bye.